Jeez. That's what he's putting me up welcome to the 7 holidays to the post office. Every Thursday, alternate, and consistently overwhelming. My pictures. I don't say the students shots who are about the English marks, the students you know, I'm more for the after them. Race different former presidents of the Trump matches after the I see the expansion school shootings. The band, Lavo, the Curls, music to the single from the upbeat soft narrow the sector of Honorary. A single was called the No God Socialist. They cannot do. I'll be able to note that every person from Cavity appears in directions and a potential race get have been well, brain breaks the theory are researchers on prolonged by genetic medication leads to lead to admired straws. More enough to find people about to the columns. The bill realization slowing, smoking more issuing needed the baby cloud, work them with the beam, showing the eyes and Lord Bogatetas. And this was in JFK said, they'll say that. And all of them said, I'm passionate city of the Israel, show Jason about Muhammad Aston already, over now to the back. Oh, number great, you might give it. But these shit here is bad lines. The conversation is increasing the famous fortune all the time, right? Screaming, understand, it's supposed to be shit, it's your fault. Speaking of now worse things, because everyone's saying so they lead and the call not be fascist and things like all things, and the it's not like here. Economy. I think you're the kind of idea. And I ordered to suit goes to other. And I was like, and this for next one that did here. They're wearing Roman's eyes, it's shaped for folks. I know all of you, all ever people use it, stroke your on link to the side names, fun, because it's similar time, the jump straight in play about, yeah. But we all have a big here, that college, big everyone on. This like in our calmness, just kind of know you're coming on action, so kind of listen essentially like it's like to get that and so because you're not it's a fun but you know those age laws, women towards equality, but I'm just I don't want to ban it. Respect for our followers, no poor people want to get so and universities actually applying on those speaks here. And after it's no track grow up, but you know basically like to be like here the big confused of that's on the show why. Well, no. See, I really watch soccer and sort of just break down the ways. And here's the thing. We have all ours, you know, Hungarian, Protestant, this, with the Falconosics and very compass, communists and great about here. And kind of Canadian, both for all Yamba. And I was laying up for his assassination based on the sequence, so very severe. And I think, or in fact, the up and I'm getting those out link albums that they're pretty cool. And then, and besides, based on the United bit, we have, is it checked that? My site tips, they realize this, I was wearing on the sale. And you get the dog, the boy sale, he was always silver, the one reason possible. I mean, using these could both sound shoe dates and so very interesting songs, sorry, Stelter Grip Seal, and them guys quit, so like, he's my shooter actually. I'm like, we've never met. He doesn't know, he had the lion stars here, like, he dudes, so he's remember the nice, so hard. He plays with A guys.
Are there any exceptions to these sizes needs to ensure that your records lost on the business unit? We're being honest with the sign. Everyone welcome to the university was all society. The motion of central house names, this house prefers the world about prompted. The same order starts tallest. Teachers are a maximum of 7 minutes for students and 10 minutes for guests. After a person in the fourth box in each was a signified by our bell. Speakers are opposing sides of audience sentence, referring to offer specification. We encourage central audience participation and during breaks. Here's something we like in shop here. Here's something you don't like in shop shade. prioritizes that their good beats now result and what design concerns that by such night a senior member of council to Kelly, we are on reception or e-wave this whose actual email at ssd@tcdbill.com. Certainly, I is actual again president.tcdbill.com. The speakers for today's meeting are as follows. Speaking proposition with Ann Kohler, a final year sociology student. Connor McDade, Dr. Connor Things and Research Development Things Business School of Peace University Belfast. These the authors two Irish Connors, Sings the Calder and Running. Links made it into a Rosser School of Australia, group of artists and community groups, the spring dynamics and theory of action to decide the shady shirt. Next is a composition about broader student data, a master's student studying digital arts and teaching ideal practices. And finally, without the word her, she's an assistant professor at social policy at Maynard University, specializing in housing policy and housing rights. Made certain Twitter appearances on national TV and radio as expert of Irish housing policy and Franchise Brenda Potter Show and Blind Words Podcasts. He's an articles featuring the Irish Student Leader, and he is the author of Housing Shock, the Irish Housing Crisis and How to Solve It, and Gas. Speaking of opposition, you have David Kelly, a second-year math student and senior member Council for Bill. We also have Beaky McCarthy, a second-year political science with this social policy student, and Richard Bory Stewart until we then have Tommy CB, a first-year psychology student, and finally Dr. Kenneth Silver is an associate professor at business ethics at the Trinity Business School and fellow at Trinity College Dublin. He teaches courses on ethical conduct both within and outside the marketplace and researches a wide array of cross-disciplinary topics relevant to appropriate business conduct, the sort of questions of whether what corporations are, what they are for, and the extent of their rights and responsibilities. Without further ado, I call on John Ward, so opening for Zach off the street for meeting as a whole.
Ladies and gentlemen, capitalists and capitalists in disguise, stop dance, finance and crypto bros, and women who are too young to realize that they do not want to date a man in finance, especially not if he has a trust fund. Bobby Sands did not die for you to fancy a lad with a trust fund, so wake up. Remember, ladies, their portfolio might be on fire, so is their dick due to an untreated STI. They balance life. They buy Pepsi shares, but do coke in the pub. They are not from the hood. They are from Robin Hood. They will diss you for believing in astrology, but they also let stocks decide their mood, which is, I think, way worse. So, look, instead of a man in finance, look for a woman in sociology, find a man, student loans, blue eyes. On a more serious note, let's talk about profit. What profit is and where it comes from. By profit, we mean the amount of resources that are accumulated by the bourgeois. They either reinvest these resources to expand their business or sit on it, which is an increasing issue in Europe. Capitalism is also the only economic system that is reliant on constant growth and expansion. I'll break down that. On the company level, if you do not expand, you lose on the long run, because your competition will outperform you. On the macro level, if the economy is not expanding, that creates recession, crisis. In essence, without growth, capitalism struggles to function smoothly, as profit generation, employment, and the ability to repay debts all hinge on constant expansion. When growth halts, these interconnected elements unravel, resulting in economic crises. Profit in capitalism is primarily driven by two key mechanisms: surplus value extraction from labor and the exploitation of natural resources, or a combination of both. Surplus value refers to the difference between the value that workers produce and the wages that they are paid. In capitalism, workers are paid less than the value they create, and this difference, surplus value, is appropriated by the capitalists as profit. Whatever you work as, you directly or indirectly is directly involved in profit accumulation. Capitalism also relies heavily on the exploitation of the environment, extracting raw materials, oil, minerals, land, water. These natural resources are treated as commodities with little concern for sustainability, as the immediate focus is on converting these resources into products to sell for profit. A mining company might extract minerals at low cost, sell them at a higher price, and pocket the difference. This is actually the best way of profit accumulation, as you don't need to pay any money for the resources that you're saving. Or very little. The environmental degradation, thus, is a direct result from profit accumulation. And it's often overlooked because it doesn't directly affect short-term profitability. In many industries, both labor exploitation and environmental degradation occur simultaneously. For example, in industrial agriculture, workers may be paid low wages, with wild natural resources like water, soil, and biodiversity are heavily exploited. The capitalist system is driven by a constant need to increase profits and accumulate capital. This creates pressure to continuously exploit labor and natural resources more intensely and effectively. So it is clear that profit is inherently linked to exploitation of people, factors that can be either measured with numbers like wealth inequality and unquantifiable matters like alienation, and of course the complete destruction of our planet. Nevertheless, some will argue that capitalists take greater risks, so they deserve more money, which is simply untrue, as they more than often have limited liability, they do not risk their livelihoods, have access to unequal rewards, and when they eventually pop up, the government bails them out. Some would also claim that profit is the key driver of innovation, that companies reinvest the profits and then create innovation. However, innovation existed long before the emergence of capitalism. Civilizations such as ancient Egypt, China, and the Islamic Golden Age produced major advancements in mathematics, engineering, medicine, and astronomy. These innovations occurred in a non-capitalist, often communal or state-driven economic system. Many key innovations have also come from government-funded research and public institutions, not private companies. The internet, GPS, and biotechnology, for example, have largely developed through government initiatives or publicly funded research. Why? Because of the profit motive central to capitalism, sometimes discourages innovation. Companies may avoid risks, long-term investments in favor of short-term profitability. Capitalism often leads to the creation of monopolies and oligopolies, where the few large companies, corporations dominate the industry. In these cases, again, innovation may be stifled because dominant companies have little incentive to innovate when they already control the market. So, in short, I think you cannot separate profit from the economic system of capitalism, which is just inherently flawed and leads to destruction of human lives as well as the environment. And it's not hard to see that the effects that it has in Ireland. I mean, we all live somewhere, and rent, for example, in the absence of social and public housing, the amount of rents you pay are extortionate. There's a game that you can compare Swedish prison cells to gas that you can rent for a couple of €1,000 in Ireland, and I don't really live in Swedish prison. So with all these in mind, it's just really important to understand where profit comes from, that it comes from your labor and the environment around you, and whatever they try to tell you about innovation and whatever they tell you about trickle-down economics or the eventually ends up funding your schooling is just not true or partially true. So with that, I beg you.
I'd like to thank our speaker for their very fine speech and call on David to open the case for side opposition. Dear Gary.
imagine. Imagine a world without profit and imagine one with. What Anna got up here and said was, she said profit is bad, that leads to capitalism. We gave no alternative. Didn't really explain why profit leads to bad capitalism. Didn't really explain the mechanisms that lie underneath them. What I want to do today is really imagine, really sit in your seat and think what a world without profit would be like. Because we don't have to stand in the worst possible version of capitalism in our side of the house. Ethan, Kenneth, Candy. Yes. We can stand here, we can talk about a world with regulation, with better policy, a world where we have minimum wage, a world where we have social housing, because we have to profit from people making businesses and things like this. We don't have to set up the worst version that side proposition is talking about. We can give an alternative. But what they have to stand over is a world without profit, a world with no other alternative for people to come out and make any form of money. What do these worlds without profit look like? Look like queens and kings. Look like people who got to be peasants and serfs. Because if you don't have any profit, if you know that you make more money than the things you have, the skills you have, why would you ever do anything extra? If you were a peasant on a farm, why would you get an education? An education would lead to more money, would lead to you having more money or food for your family to feed them and give them a better life. So you're stuck there. And this world is stuck not just because of the things you can't get profit, because people are used to these things. People are used for centuries of going like, okay, my granny was a farmer, my granddad was a farmer. It's okay the way things are now, because there's no alternative. Yeah?
Have you studied history?
I have studied history. There's not the world. I think the point here though is that profit is inherently tied to bad people and bad people doing bad things. This is something outside of the debate. People want to gain power, and accumulate it and get more and more will exist on both sides of the house. And then you're going to talk about, oh, well, we have this perfect world, we have a commune, different things going on, people talk to each other, and we share resources. The key problem with this though is that it's inherently unstable. If you are there and you're a commune and someone beside you starts going, oh well, I'm going to start doing things for profit, I'm going to start expanding, I'm going to start getting some more resources, one person can fuck up the entire system and make everyone in your life a lot worse. This is why this system is led to where we are now. So what actually, do you want to say something else?
No, I don't see a lot.
Okay, so what actually is profit then? I think it's quite simply someone just making extra money off something else. Whether that's you hiring someone and you go, well, they are only giving me $10 of work every day. I'm going to pay them maybe like $8. Since extra $2 can go towards other things. I know that a lot of times this can go to great things. It goes towards the people's own pockets and their own, their yachts and all these things. But the point though is that a world without profit doesn't have any extra income or capital to do anything else. So why would a business even exist in the first place? You can't have profit to go out there and actually see it happen. The amount of people who start new businesses, who try to start something new or some new idea because they see some advantage, they see something else you can get out of the situation. It's why they go and take that risk in the first place. But Anna didn't tell you, she had no reason why people would hate person on their side of the house, no reason why people wouldn't innovate. She talks about innovation, she talks about the Islamic Golden Age, the Renaissance. All the people there doing all this research were rich old white people, or rich old people from your designated group of people. And the innovations never actually went down to people on the ground. Think about it. All the innovations of like chemistry, science, physics, pharmacy, whatever talk about are only important to us now because people have an incentive to sell them to you. People have an incentive to study paracetamol, to make it bigger, grow stronger, have trade links go faster and faster, so it gets cheaper. So you actually have the resources to live in a day-to-day life. People actually afford the things you get innovation for. Even if innovation exists inside the house, people can't actually get it. People can't actually go out there and accumulate it. I know. Not everyone has access to best innovation, COVID vaccines, things like this. But the point is that their alternative is nothing. The alternative is people have access to any of these things. It's our side of the house, so people do. Why is this then good? A few reasons. First thing, we have a lot of people. I understand that in the grand scheme of things, we right now here like 7-8 billion people. Before this time, there's just less people on the planet who couldn't support as many. Not to use old and outdated farming methods. People have enough food to live on a day-to-day basis. People couldn't grow economies to any bigger sizes. People couldn't go out and grow and get better climate change and all this stuff. Why is this going to make more people live their lives being happy? But on top of this, you have people actually living decent quality of lives, at least in some places around the world, and help bring them out. When we say prefer a world, we're saying not just right now, also go to the future and go to the past. So I can say right now, the world of profit is probably pretty shit, that's okay. But I can say the world going forward in 100, 200, 300 years, we better with profits. People have incentive to do more things, to change, to actually go out and do some regulation and things like this. What was I going to say? Oh, yes, the climate, yes. Sorry, I've got my speech there, it's okay, yes. The reason you have to think about when it comes to climate is that we as people are inherently kind of fragile. You know, like, we, exist here, a country, 200,000 people. There's always going to be some existential crisis coming our way in our lives, whether that's a meteor, or some tsunami, or some earthquake, that fucked up people's lives for centuries. The Greeks, they had their little, guy and stick outside Athens, like the area, and then the earthquake came and it got destroyed. Things like this mess up so many people's lives, and because of the innovations we have now, we can actually deal with these existential crises to some level, to some degree. So yes, if meteor comes, we have some ability to deal with it. Yes, climate change might fuck us up, but also, if you have profit around that, you want to do more good things, and get more money, and do more good things. Yeah. Is that everything to say? Any last points? No? Okay. Yeah, that's all, guys. Thank you.
I'd like to thank those speakers for the very presentation. All of Dr. Monica for starting off such a beautiful.
Thank you for the invite to speaking here today. So, in terms of profit, we're talking about profit not as a kind of Plato form. This is something that is not ahistorical, something that exists outside of time and space. We're not here to talk about profit as we look at the shadows. It is profit within a certain mode of production and exchange, and that system is capitalism. So when we talk about profit today, it's as it's actually lived today, and that is the capitalist mode of profit. So what is this? Well, but capitalism itself it's called many things, but for me, it is a system of transformation. Its sole organizational principle is to turn human labor and nature into their money form. And that's it. That's its sole organizational principle. And it organizes law and culture and art and everything around that single principle. And it took hundreds of years, and it took wars and genocide and slavery and racism to get where it is today. Because it is a highly coercive system, because many of us don't really like to be turned into this. And then that transferred around, and then recorded under laws that we are not of our own kind of making. So it starts off in the 13th century in the Italian city states. It then moves into the Dutch Republic and really takes off in the 1660s when the capitalism merges with the state in the form of the banking union. And what that does is that saves the capitalism from its own inherent crises. Because what bails it out time and time and time again is the state. So when we talk about some of the myths around it that exist around capitalism and the motive, its sole principle is to turn you into this. And for me, that is barbaric. And it's a barbaric system. And it's highly, highly kind of violent as well. When we look at this kind of proper kind of motive, it's a bit like studying climate by Orwell's weather. When you look at how capitalism works, we need the same lens as in climate studies, which is over time. You can no more understand how climate changes by looking at the weather than you can by looking at profit under capitalism by looking at balance sheets of individual companies. That is not how this game works. As an example, as we're here in Ireland, and Ireland is as we all know, is a strange and very funny place. It has this global south history, while located in the global north. And there are tensions there all the way through. It has this kind of colonial past, and yet it's in the global north, and there are tensions there. How that can play out in terms of our own issues, that does give us some insight into what this system of transformation actually means. So from the 1800s onwards, when Ireland was brought into the UK formally, through war and through the federal rebellion, Ireland starts to serve a certain role in the imperialist nature of the British system, because capitalism is imperialism. It can no more function derived than we can function throughout our own communities as well. It is inherent to its profit system, to the system of the transformation. So Ireland ends up exporting three things to Britain, pretty much from the 19th century onwards until around the 1960s. It's people, it's savings, and it's capital. And how did it end up with capital? Well, in 1845, from 1845 until 1851, the population of the island falls by 2 million. We know why. 2 million died from famine and 1 million emigrated as well. During the same time, the number of heads of cattle and sheep in Ireland increases by 2 million. You had a vicious and bloody transformation of the use of land from people to cattle over a 6-year time period. One that was justified at the time, and still is by some economic historians, as that was the best use of the land in terms of the profit. To have cattle on it instead of people. That is how barbaric and psychotic this system of the transformation really is. So much so that even today, cattle in Ireland is still a thing. Our population still hasn't gotten back to pre-economic days. I mentioned that purely as one example. I could give more from the so-called global south in terms of racism and genocide and slavery that are the very foundation stones of this system of transformation of human labor and into a money form. And capitalism did not invent money. It was an invasion of the money system. And that's what it does. It goes in, gets the shoulders, and it invades these systems. The Ireland today, of course, still has this kind of weird mixed up in the view of itself in terms of its kind of semi-colonial, as Joyce called it, past, and its a position in the so-called global north. Its use of kind of FDI and housing is still kind of predicated on that kind of view. You may have heard these myths around Irish people and their DNA, which forces them to buy houses, if that's in our kind of DNA. Well, again, there are very practical, historical, and material reasons as to why Ireland had, up until 2002, a relatively high number of home ownership. Same reason as why in the former Eastern bloc countries it is quite high. The social housing was, from the onwards, was privatised. So that's why this whole thing kind of pops. What we have here today, in terms of housing, is a return to that profit-led housing system. And we can see how that can play even in our own lives as we do today. In terms of that history, I mean, one of the things that I've been working on at the moment is, apart from studying libertarian capitalism, actually existing origin capitalism and its contradictions. Is that I'm also editing in works of James Conley. And the first volume is out the next one, so I'm sure. But what I'm reading, what I was going through, his writings, and some people may know, some may not. In 1897, outside on the 21st of June, 1897, James Connolly and Maud Dawn organised an anti-Jubilee protest against Queen Victoria and big celebrations at that time. And it was organised 4 College Green outside the front gates of Trinity College. And a resolution there was passed condemning empire and imperialism. A procession was formed with a black flag symbolic of their Jubilee feelings, and they carried a coffin draped in a flag that had written on it all the stats in terms of the famine that I've just given you here now. In 1897, of course, the famine was to them as 1974 is to us today. It was 50 years after. However, as we set off, and this is comedy itself, the Trinity College students, bursting with loyalty for the empire, which enables them to cultivate their brains at the expense of the working class, sallied out, armed with cudgels, and attacked the procession, endeavouring to capture the flag. Then an elegant shindy took place. Sticks rained down in all directions. Broken heads were given and taken. But eventually, the proletariat drove the bourgeoisie home in disorder and marched in triumph to the Socialist Club room on Little Life Street, where Connolly addressed from the window a vast crowd who closed a good night's work with 3 ringing cheers for the Socialist Republic. I say to you today now, Trinity students, now is your time to address that wrong, to vote against profit, and to change back that slur on the history of a Trinity College and condemn to the history books this barbarity that is the practice of profit. Thank you.
Something not easy to admit to my fellow capitalists. I'm not a business student. I'm not a med student, not global business, or even economics. Despite what it may look like, I'm an art student.
Shame!
I spend my days smoking French toads outside the arts block. Mom and dad do not smoke. I wear the occasional sweater and Carhartt pants. I may even dabble in discussions on the political and cultural state of some country thousands of miles away, whose turbulence is something I can never relate to. However, I will take a contentious stance as I believe I'm well informed, as someone who gets their news from the likes of TikTok, Daily Mail, and an impact Instagram page. And who lives in flat in Portobello, funded by my parents, whose money probably comes from a company listed on the Trinity's BDS blacklisted companies. Despite this, I digress. Today we are here to debate whether a world without profit is superior, a debate of communism versus capitalism. This topic is in fact near and dear to my heart. Debating against communism has been in my family for generations. My late grandfather, Joseph R. McCarthy, was very passionate about it. So much so, he created a national scare, opened many national investigations, and set hearings. All to you, Grandpa. The opposition make arguments of collective ownership of benefits and universal basic income being more equitable and leading to a more robust welfare state. I'm already tired. Have you ever seen a movie about the growth of communism? No. Have you seen Wolf of Wall Street? Yes. The Wolf of Wall Street. Somebody this time. Now, for this debate, I did do some research. I did do my due diligence and dug into this beauty of knowledge. I did with her. Let me tell you, it was a roller coaster. I would like to share some quotes with you this evening, if that's okay. The communists have no need or want to introduce the community of women. Now, Carl, what do you mean by that one? I was shocked, confused, and I did not know what he meant by the introduction of women. I was puzzled. Does communism hate women? Is a vote for the proposition of voting against women? I think so. Well, I was able to clarify when what he meant by the community of women further down that page. For the rest, it is self-evident that the abolition of the present system of production must bring with it the abolition of the community of women. Karl Marx, what were you thinking? I think God made out of a little secret. May have been a bees and the bees rather than a birds and the bees. That's what it is. Anyways, when I first arrived at Trinity during freshman week, one of my very first introductions to college was from communism's biggest fan, our former president, ex-U President, Laszlo Laszlo wasted no time during this introductory speech and dove right into what can only be described as a tale of confusing love-hate relationship through political euphemisms with a character I've yet to meet, Olivia Doyle. Despite the tense chemistry between the two, I listened to much of what Laszlo had to say. He called out the high cost of living, high cost of tuition, and how the university and government elites, the so-called bourgeoisie, were capitalizing on this system with ever-increasing margins of profit. He called on us, we the student, the proletariat, needed to rise up and demand change. I was almost convinced. I did, however, do some research before agreeing to storm the Pablo's house with a pitchfork. And what did I find? Oh, Laszlo, our dear Laszlo. Laszlo not only attended private school, but one that costs just for secondary school, just for secondary education, upwards of 70,000 euros to attend. Now, does this sound very proletariat to you? I don't think so.
Judy's father's work was actually free for him. So it was not private. It was mandatory anyway.
Sounds like I'll get something now. Does this sound like take down the bourgeoisie to you? I don't think so. I believe you, the member of the bourgeoisie, begging to be part of the proletariat, learning experience, looking for a seat at the table with the very politically elite that he criticizes. Okay. I do feel it was right to try and provide some arguments in favor of capitalism, so I ventured far and long on a treacherous journey to the business building. I made my way in to see what goes on in this capitalist utopia. Far across campus, I studied the characters, the environments. I emerged from the overfunded glass house with two findings. The art's all kind of shit. and second, this paper calling out of a Trinity rugby bag carried by an overly confident fourth-year best student who had secured a big floor offer. I was quick to pick it up before the owner noticed it was gone. Overwhelmed with excitement, I rushed back to the art clock with the newfound contraband I had found. I thought this material must hold some truth. Insight, the key to success in capitalist society. I unfolded, waiting to be enlightened, and was I disappointed. What did I find? How to color in the lines. Now, enough of the antics. I did choose to put in some points in arguing in favor of capitalism. Here we go. 1. Capitalism did lead to the French Revolution, which led to the creation of the Lebanese and the guillotine. 2. If it weren't for capitalism, literary traits such as the Wolf of Wall Street or the Big Short would never be created. Lastly, the most important of them all, the Celtic Tiger. Who doesn't want the boom back? Who doesn't want to use the oxygen bars of Grant Thomas, fly in on a helicopter to their child's communion, or devote the Spice Girls singing their child's 18th birthday party? Well, there we have it, folks. The founder of communism, or rolled up profit, hates women. Communism's biggest fan is a fraud in disguise, and capitalism truly breeds innovation. A vote for off is a vote for women, a vote against the diplomat private school kids, and a vote to bring the boom back.
I'd like to introduce the person from Trinity College Dublin, who indicates the side of opposition. Junior.
Ladies and gentlemen, this house would prefer a world without profit. Growing up, my dad would always say, if you're not a communist by the time that you're 18, there's something wrong with your heart. And if you're not over it by the time you're 25, there's something wrong with your mind. Well, I'm 26, so I'm not going to go into the obvious Marxist arguments against capitalism. My fellow speakers have done a great job with that already. But I would like to tell you a little bit of what I feel about profit in the world that we live in today. When someone says profit, I typically understand it in its most economic sense, right? The financial So when we look beyond the financial, profit can also be interpreted in terms of other forms of gain, whether it's material, social, or emotional. Anything that exceeds what was initially put in. Now, is profit a man-made concept? Absolutely. It stems from the way humans have chosen to organize their societies, particularly in relation to trade and exchange, resource management. But it wasn't something inherent in the natural world. But in those early pre-monetary days, it wasn't profit that motivated people. It was survival, care for one another, and direct relationship with the natural world that we live in. They may not have had material wealth, but they had something we often lose in this modern day, a sense of direct connection to, purpose, and each other. If you think about it, humans existed long before the invention of money, or even barter system. Early humans relied on cooperation for survival. They lived communally, shared resources, and worked together to hunt, gather, and protect each other from threats. In such small, tight communities, everyone contributed according to their abilities, and the emphasis was on survival and mutual care. There wasn't a concept of personal profit or holding, because these practices weren't sustainable then. Instead, the focus was on independence. If the first sign of civilization, according to Margaret Mead, is a heel-free murder from 15,000 years ago, it shows that humans had learned by then to care and protect another when they weren't able to do that themselves. And the barter system was invented only roughly 8,000 years ago. It's funny to think that humans managed to thrive for thousands of years in compassion and cooperation before someone finally said, "Hey, what if I traded you this coat for your fish?" Had we been profit-driven from the start, the species might have gone extinct before we even got to the point of inventing economics. In a world without profit, we could directly hold accountable the giant corporations that give us shifting deadlines for when they become a net zero company. There's also a long history of artists who have struggled financially, but whose work has shaped culture and human thought in ways that transcend profit. Think of Vincent van Gogh, who lived in poverty and was largely unrecognized during his lifetime. Yet his art touches millions of lives today. His driving force wasn't profit, it was the sheer need to express himself. What he created wasn't measured in terms of financial gain. It was measured by the depth of feeling and the connection that it sparked within others. Think about the epic saga of Romeo and Juliet, a romance that the world hasn't forgotten even today. It would have never existed if they measured their efforts against profit. Isn't it things like love, in the end, that make life meaningful? Why do people in their steady, cushy corporate jobs spend lives of quiet desperation? Why do they complain of feeling no sense of purpose, a disconnect, and ultimately burn out? When profit becomes the primary driver, it risks stripping away these deeper layers of human connection without which life is nothing really. I mean, who here wants to be incredibly successful and come back to a stellar apartment in Manhattan or...
Oh, it's not 10. Successful.
No one to talk to. If success was measured by profit, this guy would be incredibly successful, right? So, I'd like to end with a song that gets me through a lot of cold days in this profit-driven world around this. And if you know, I'm sure you do, please join in. So it goes, colors of the rainbow, pretty in the sky, are also
student who's being ripped off in the face in honorary. All I'm getting in exchange of it is a fucking wine addiction. I mean, even besides that, like, I'm a psychology student, but trust me, I know a bit or two about economics. Like, Ethan forgot to mention it, but Karl Marx said, I see it, I like it, I want it, I got it. And you know, let's be philosophical about this. There are, of course, two sides of the story. So if given a chance to get a decent job, to work to help people, save the planet when there are people who exist, I've driven college students off and exchanged an alcohol addiction. And making so much fucking freakishly rich money, what do you think? We all have been so deeply conditioned to seek materialism to such an extent at this point that it almost feels stupid to dedicate work and effort and get a job and still fucking cry every time the paper straw gets all soggy and disgusting because, oh, one fine day I thought I could save the planet. No, come on. I'm not that shallow. Yeah, you know what? Guys, you're right. I don't care. I'm indifferent to this debate or whatever. I went out with this guy recently, and I really miss him. He's really cute and smart and funny. He has a Rolls Royce. He was 50 years old. But this is the 21st century, y'all. There's no game that can't be won by shaking some ass, and there's no shame in admitting where food is not coke or grass. If my bank balance can't get me tickets to see Chapel Road, let's face it, what is it good for? And you all have absolutely no right to say that there can exist a world without profit when it's already incredibly selfish to pretend to be interested in a debate for a free glass of wine. Anyway, me still being a very generous supporter of the community, all while being pro-capitalism, I'd like to share a few ways that you can make money. One, sell your will to live. In other words, your clothes, shoes, and jewelry. Second, voluntarily cut off your last no. Or just cut off getting fancy coffee every morning. Third, sacrifice yourself to the evil. Guys, face it, get a real job. Lastly, I might not go the degree as of yet, but you know that there is no debt big enough that it only plans the government can't pay out. And gentlemen, the only big fat thing a lady is looking for is a big fat bank balance. Because what is any diamond good for if the spooning isn't silver? Vote for pro profit and 50 because I'm broke.
I'd like to thank Tom for their very kind speech and call on Rory to close this case with side proposition. Hear, hear.
Okay, here we are. Here I am back here. It's quite a while since I've been here. Student Union President back in the year 2000. Long time ago. And you're awful hard and poor last time. At least you had the freaking decency and organization to organize an amazing encampment for Palestine. You know? And with lots of other students, and it is good to be back. I remember the last debate I was here, there was about 7 people at it. I don't know what they did to get such a crowd tonight. I was thinking like there'd be 6 people here, so I didn't even bother to prepare a speech. I was like, just turn up and chat to whoever's there. But this is different, yeah, it was wine. Okay, so while I was listening and great multitasking, I was thinking about it, I did think a little bit about it. I was thinking that if you all imagine for a moment difficult world without profit as the driving force in our societies and economies. Just imagine the buses would stop, the hospitals would cease functioning, the streets wouldn't be cleaned, the libraries would be shut, our schools would close, and the worst of all, our universities would close. No, they wouldn't. That is if workers would decide to work as opposed to profit. And it's the same if you think about who would mind the children, who would provide care at home to those with disabilities and the elderly. In fact, if we had a world without profit, why would we get up in the morning? Because isn't our main motivation when we wake up in the morning, according to the neoclassical economics that dominates our economics thinking and teaching in Trinity across the world, the understanding of human nature is that we are all just utility maximizing individuals out to maximize our wealth. That, my friends and comrades, is honor worship. Because if any of you have read Rutger Brennan's book, A Hopeful History of Humankind, anyone read it? Here. Yes? Very good. That book has a completely different explanation of what is human nature. Has anyone read Gabor Mate's The Myth of Normal? No? Okay, here's a few books you need to read. Eric Fromm's To Be or To Have. Oh my God. Call yourself fucking university students. Come on. Well, you definitely need to do some reading, and it might explain why neoliberalism is so dominant. We need to understand that actually human nature, and what is human nature, is not one driven by selfishness and profit, but actually we are social beings who are connected and interconnected, and our sense of ourselves, our well-being is interconnected with our families, with our communities, with society, and actually the driving force within us is to live, to survive, to love, to care, as Connor mentioned, and also to seek meaning, to seek purpose, and to get experiences of discovery and to deal with the shit that happens along this journey of life. And there's lots of it that will hit you, and I'm sure has hit many of you already, and profit tells us nothing about how to deal with that. And when we look at what's happened in the last 40 years of neoliberal capitalism, since Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan started the process of destroying the welfare state. And for social science students who are here, they're probably well aware, and I won't get too much into it, I was thinking about when I was starting, that I wasn't invited as a comedian, so I wasn't intending on making too many funny comments or jokes. I have the right and the absolute freedom to be as boring as I want, because you invited me as my position of assistant, or whatever I am. So I am going to explain, where did the welfare state come from? The welfare state came from the absolute failure of profit-driven logic in housing, in healthcare, in education, in industry. In industry as well. That's why we have a public health system, a public education system, public housing, and we used to have public enterprise as well. And the reason was because when profit dominated, people's needs were not met. Their basic needs were not met. And what we've seen over the last 40 years is neoliberalism, that ideology that the market profit is the determining, should be the determining logic of the system. The hidden hand of the market should determine what is provided and what is not. What have we seen? We have seen unprecedented inequality in our societies. We have seen ourselves, this is why you should really read Gabor Mate's Myth of Normal, this how he describes it, that our very being has been commodified. The way in which our, all of the things, toxic stress he talks a lot about. You know, we are not well as a society. We are the most unwell we've been in our human history. And why? And I would argue it is about profit. It is about the way everything is commodified. And social media in particular, social media companies that commodify our very attention, that further atomizes and alienates us from ourselves racism, body dysphoria, anxiety. But of course, who is the answer for that? Big Pharma. And remember, what drives Big Pharma? Profit. And, of course, the climate is mentioned as well. Okay, to that point. Right. The life trajectory of most of you here in relation to the fundamental need of housing to really freaking depress me has been, I did lots of folks like fucking depress you, has been determined by the profit needs of banks, of investor funds, of landlords, of real estate investors. Why you are unlikely to ever own or rent even your own home is profit. Myself and others argued for rent controls for the last 10 years. We were told by Fine Gael, in partnership with Labour, then in partnership with Independents, then with Fianna Fáil, then with the Greens, that rent controls were not possible because they would interfere with the ability of investor funds to make profit. If investor funds didn't make profit, they wouldn't build housing, we'd have no housing, and we would be fucked. That was the logic. Straight up. And where is that logic got us? The same with developers. They've allowed house prices increase year after year. Why? Because developers argue we need higher house prices because we need that's the only way we can make profit because it's too costly to build them otherwise. You probably might have heard the news the last 2 days that 50,000 apartments are now stopped being built because it's not profitable enough. There's not profits. So this is what happens when you allow profit drive the delivery of basic needs. I probably am over time, but no, my call was meant for later. But yeah, evictions last year, another example. There was a ban on evictions that was stopping homelessness. Government said, no, we have to lift it. Why? Because the investment fund said that they won't invest, they won't make profit if we don't lift it, and they lifted it. Homelessness has increased. And who did Simon Harris blame for the homelessness this week? Asylum seekers. Immigrants. Motherfucking. What an absolute. It disgusts me. Absolutely disgusts me. It is wrong. Anyway, it's great to get this out. Just like her. Okay, so we need a new value system, new philosophy, new principles to run our society. The economy, I think, should be based around human rights, human needs, well-being. But there's nothing inevitable that this is going to change. Indeed, we've seen 40 years of rollback. It has to be argued for, organised for, voted for. There's a very important election coming up in the next few months, possibly weeks. We have to bring human nature, which is our common humanity, as a driving logic to our society and economy. Fuck the profit-driven algorithm. Let's build a new one. Thank you.
And though you may remember Adam Smith as one of the primary proponents of capitalist production, I'll remind you that he himself was immediately sensitive to the alienating effects of the division of labor. And he wrote a whole second book on the moral sentiments. So that's some partial term. Problematic or not, the profit motive is allowed for incredible gains in technology and production and our general standard of living. Gains so significant as to avoid Marx's predicted immiseration of the masses. Those for the proposition are not miserable, they're ungrateful. And without the profit motive, where would we be? In a world without profit, who would make the computers, the blankets, the life-saving drugs, the movies, and so on? And why? Sure, the government could make some of these things, and maybe it should. I'm certainly not standing here saying that there should be markets in all things, or that these markets should be absolutely free. But to take an example, if we were to vanquish markets and put the government in charge, how many computers should we make? And with what features? And from what materials? You know, we've had this argument before. Socialist economists in the early 20th century argued for a central planning system for the economy as a whole, and the Soviet Union was offered as a potential test case for such an economy. In response, several economists, von Mises, Friedrich Hayek, in the 30s argued that markets played this critical epistemological role. They helped us figure out how much things should cost. It's the sellers competing in pursuit of profit, chasing after potential buyers that tells us what we should make and how much of it. That's the efficient allocation of resources is so accepted as to be called the first fundamental theorem of welfare economics. So who won that argument? I'm not going to say that central planning didn't work for the Soviets and so it can't work. It may be that there's historical particularities to the USSR and every other instantiation of communism that we've seen that explains why it didn't work in those cases either. It could be that